Hi, and welcome to my channel, Rust and Roses. I'm Rebecca, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today is all about the pumpkins. We're going to be working on what I thought was going to be three projects that actually turned into five. And I'm a multitasker, so I did them all at the same time. So I hope you'll stick with me to the end to see the final reveal because I think they turned out amazing. Thank you again for joining me and consider subscribing to my channel, and I'll continue to bring more content. Don't forget to hit the like button if you like the content. Thank you so much for joining me.
This is just a small ornament that a friend gave me. It came from the Dollar Tree and initially had my initial on it, but I removed that using my heat gun and my paddle, and I wanted to just do something for the fall season. So I'm going to paint over that with my Charming chalk paint, and then we'll figure out what we want to do with it. I found this really small pumpkin cutout, wooden pumpkin cutout at the Dollar Tree, and I thought it would be really cute. It didn't have any embellishments on it whatsoever, so I figured we could do whatever. And I thought I'd try this orange polka dot material that I also found at the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to try to use the iron-on transfer method using Mod Podge, something I've never done before, but I've seen other people have a lot of success with it. So that's what I'm going to try today. I have two projects I'm going to try the iron-on method with. The first is the small pumpkin that you just saw, and then I have this mason jar cutout that I also want to try with the Mod Podge iron-on method, and I'm going to be using two different fabrics. So let's see how it turns out. So here I'm just going to put on my second coat of white chalk paint on the small pumpkin that had the initial on it. We'll set that to the side and let it dry entirely as we work on our other two projects.
Well, if you thought I was through with pumpkins, I apologize, but you would be wrong. So what I want to do is make a pumpkin patch. I have a decoupage, a print that I want to decoupage. But I'm taking some tumbling tower blocks. These are the small ones from Dollar Tree, the dark ones, and I'm gluing 4, 3, 2, and 1. And then I'm going to take some of the larger ones from Five Below and make a larger pumpkin. These are already glued together, obviously, and then I'll glue these together and let them dry. But I want to paint my pumpkin. This is just one of the door hangers or whatever from Dollar Tree. Pumpkin on one side, but I'm going to make a pumpkin patch on the other side. You could use it on both sides if you wanted to. But my orange is very bright. It's an acrylic paint, so I am going to darken it up just a little bit because it's very bright. I'm just going to put a little bit of this burnt sienna in it. See if we can darken it up a little bit. Mix that around and give it more of a more subtle orange than the bright, bright, bright orange. mixed up real well, and it is more like a burnt orange. So, and we're gonna paint our pumpkin. So while that first coat is drying, we're going to put together our larger pumpkin, and I'm just going to be using some wood glue. I want it to stay together real well. Okay. Might have put it in the top, so we'll clean that out. One of these had some writing on the back, so I want to make sure that I put it, put it down. Lining them up to make sure that they're even. I'm going to put 3 on the bottom, and then I'll put 2 together. Situate that like that, right in the middle. And then the last one. Make my quote unquote pumpkin. Okay, I'm going to set that to the side and let that be drying. This is almost dry, so we're going to go ahead and put another coat of that burnt orange color on. So I'm going to get it full coverage. Yeah, I think this color is really pretty. Actually, turned out very well. My son is actually the artist in the family, but he's been encouraging me to work with the color wheel to get the color that I want, using the burnt sienna. And I think that's very pretty. So I'm just going to go around the edges real quick. Make sure that I get everything covered. And then we'll set that to the side and get that dried up. going to have to pivot because my decoupage print is quite large and I don't want to cover any of this up with a small one. So I'm just going to turn those into small pumpkins for a tiered tray. So right now all I'm doing is tearing around the edge to give my paper a more ragged appearance. Just going all the way around. And then we'll blend that in once we have it decoupaged on. So this one will just wind up being a hanger, not a whole pumpkin patch like I had originally planned, but then sometimes you just have to pivot, right? And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going to go all around the edge, tearing off those parts that I don't want, I don't need, don't want. This is just a print that I found online, and it's just regular copy paper. So I shouldn't get any wrinkles. So we're going to try the wet decoupage method. Make sure I don't lose any of my words or letters. And I'm just pinching where I want to tear, making sure that I don't go into my letters or into the design. Now that we have that, what we're going to do is we're actually going to lay down our Mod Podge. Make sure I have it exactly where I want it. Now I'm going to put this closer toward the bottom because I do want to put a pretty bow on it. So we will start our Mod Podge in the center, work our way out. This has a tendency to dry out very quickly, so I had it open for a little bit. Spit my Mod Podge out. Make sure I give it plenty of room. Where I want it. Run to the edge. Start here. Smooth out. And then I go back and add a little extra to those places that didn't have any Mod Podge. This way. Actually hurt to go ahead and seal the entire thing with Mod Podge so you get the same finish all over. So I'll just go ahead and use what little extra I have to go all over the pumpkin. Starting in the center, just going to ease my way out with my fingers, and then I'll use the Mod Podge that's left on the sponge to make sure that I get all of the edges and all of the corners. And I think that's a beautiful print, absolutely beautiful. Now we're going to let this dry while we make a pretty bow for it. Put some embellishments on it, and that should finish it up. So the ribbon that I've chosen to put on my pumpkin is like a fall plaid. This one almost looks like a chevron, very cute. And then I want to make some strips out of the leftover material from our project before. So I'm just going to cut these about an inch wide. And then I'm going to, actually I think I'm going to make a radial. So I'm going to cut this one off. Put that one in. I'm having bow challenges today. I want my material to show, so I'm going to turn it this way. Got some long tails. Take that one off. And we'll go with a little bit of the green. And my colors are going to the front. The tails this way, and then I'll put the other tail the other way. Some of the strings. A little bit more of this orange that I like so much. And you can always come back and trim these off. Now, I didn't do any of this color, so I'm going to put some of that one in there. Put 2 little strips of that in there. And I'm just kind of stacking them at this point to give them some depth. So open this one up real quick. Now these 2 ribbons are wired, so but they're not the same on both sides. You've got bright on one side, dull on the other. So what I'm going to do is start down. Give myself plenty of room. And I'm going to come this way with it. And I want this part of the bow to be bigger at the back. And I'm going to twist, go back the other way, make a couple of loops. I'm going to loop with that one. And then we'll add our fall ribbon. Give it a good long tail. Like I said, now this one's the same on both sides, so you don't have to twist it too much. I want to make sure that I have a large bow because it's a large pumpkin. Same on both sides. And we'll cut that off. Pull my twine up. Now I left extra long tails just in case I wanted to tie it on. Tighten that. Pull up my bow. I'm struggling with the bow today. I don't know where you guys are from, but here in South Georgia, it is hot. Now, that's going to be a big one. And I'm sure we'll trim it up, but that's okay. I'm going to tie it now tight, double knot it. I can figure out how to tie today. Goodness gracious, I am on the struggle bus. And I'm not going to cut these off real short because I'm not sure if I'm going to use them to tie on, so I'm just going to take them onto there. Turn my bow over. Of course, I'm going to flip it and then I'll dovetail it. All the ends of the wired bows. And then the others we'll just trim off whenever we see how long we want. We want. And then I think I'm going to use an acorn right in the middle. I do love me some bows. bind it with some hot glue, a generous amount of hot glue to hold it into place. Now it already has a hole for the wire hanger, and I think that turned out pretty. So, if you've joined me today for, I haven't quite finished, I'll put my acorn in the middle, but if you join me today, I certainly appreciate you sticking with me while I work on my fall pumpkin decor. And would you would consider joining me on Rust and Roses, that's my YouTube channel. My name is Rebecca, and if you like the content, I'm going to put an acorn right there. If you like the content, please consider subscribing to my channel, because it helps me grow, and then I'll know that you're actually interested in the content and want to see more. So thank you again for sticking with me. Come back and join me again for more autumn and soon to be Christmas decorations. Thanks for watching. So for this little guy, I'm going to go ahead and cover the the peduncle with twine, but I decided I'm going to use some stamps on it. So we'll see how that works out. I want to use the vintage photo, but I'm not really sure. Whoops.
On these next three projects, the small wooden pumpkin, the mason jar, and the small ornament that had an initial on it,
Hold that a little longer.
I'm going to use my Waverly Antique Wax after I have completely sanded around the edge of the two that have the fabric on them, I want to sand off the edge very well and make sure that it's smooth and leave it just a little bit ragged so that when I use the antique wax, it will give it a vintage look. Now, if this is not the look that you care for, then you can just leave it. You can trim the material off with your scissors or an X-Acto knife or something like that and leave it just as it is. After I've gotten them sanded and the antique wax put on them, all three of them, I'm going to start with embellishments. I'm going to start by actually covering all of the peduncles with twine, and I'm going to go around the mouth of the mason jar with twine as well. Once I have all of that completed, I will start with some pit berries that I have, and some florals, some leaves that I cut off of the picks that I get from Dollar Tree, some from Walmart, some from Michael's, and then I don't think any of these came from Hobby Lobby, but I do love their florals. But I'm going to cut those apart and then get those glued on to finish up the embellishments for these three small pumpkins.
Couldn't find any at the store that I shop at, so I actually ordered these online, and a whole case. You have to order by the case, so I wound up with a whole case of these. So we shall see. But I want to do Happy Fall, y'all. So I think I'm going to start right here. My Happy one. And of course I will probably have to cut these apart. That's okay. Stick that one there. I need the H. And I'm going to pause it here because you don't have to watch me cut this apart. I'll be right back. It is hot. Now, that's going to be a big one. And I'm sure we'll trim it up, but that's okay. I'm going to tie it now tight, double knot it, figure out how to tie today. Goodness gracious, I am on the struggle bus. And I'm not going to cut these off real short because I'm not sure if I'm going to use them to tie on, so I'm just going to take them on to there. Turn my bow over. Of course, I'm going to fluff it and then I'll dovetail it. All the ends of the wired bows. And then the others we'll just trim off whenever we see how long we want. And just like this one, work it out. And make these a little bit, split these so that they're not quite so wide. Yeah, the green one's a little bit wide, so but you can see how easy it is to just split them. So once we pull everything to the front, fluff our bow out, fluff and play and do whatever, and then once we put it on, we can trim it up however we want. And then I think I'm going to use an acorn right in the middle. But I do love me some bows. Orange ones I got just about right, so one more green one. Okay, let's get our pumpkin and see what we can do. If you want to look at the pumpkin that way, see my beautiful graphic, and I will take my finger dollar and antique around this a little bit, but I wanted to see just how much of this bow I want to have hanging and where I want to put it. So yes, I'm going to have to trim that up considerably. That's okay. Better too big than too small. Alright, before I do that, I'm actually going to take my Distress ink and go around the edges of my pumpkin just to give it a little rustic feel. All the way up. So now we're going to put our bow on, and I am going to use hot glue, but I'm also going to tie it around the quote-unquote peduncle. So let's flip it over. We'll get it tied on. And we'll turn it back over. Glue underneath and fluff it up. And then I'm going to put just a little bit of hot glue right here to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. Trim off my excess. Now we're going to turn it back over. We have a nice rag bow. And then we're going to trim it up so that our print will show. Wide ribbon, look it up, real big. Look, a little bit more trimming. bind it with some hot glue, a generous amount of hot glue to hold it into place. Now it already has a hole for the wire hanger, and I think that turned out pretty. If you've joined me today for, I haven't quite finished, I'll put my acorn in the middle, but if you joined me today, I certainly appreciate you sticking with me while I work on my fall pumpkin decor. And would you would consider joining me on Rust and Roses, that's my YouTube channel. My name is Rebecca, and if you like the content, I'm going to put an acorn right there. If you like the content, please consider subscribing to my channel, because it helps me grow, and then I'll know that you're actually interested in the content and want to see more. So thank you again for sticking with me. Come back and join me again for more autumn and soon to be Christmas decorations. Thanks for watching. Now I apologize, I already have happy on there. I completely forgot. I was cutting out my letters and putting them on and completely forgot. So now that they're cut out, I put them on my little block, and I'm just going to ink them real well. This is after I sanded them once, but it doesn't seem to want to be taking the ink too well. So I'm going to sand them again. Line them back up. Don't stick. They have a tendency to be a little bit frustrating. And I'm just going to give it a light sanding so it'll hold the ink. And it's not very dark because it's the photo finish. I'll move that one over. Vintage photo. And I'm going to put my fall right here. And then I'll change that out for y'all. So, happy fall, y'all. And I'll have to put an apostrophe because, and all I'm going to do is change out my F for my Y that I have actually already sanded. I'll put my Y for y'all there. I'm going to ink it again. And then the y'all will go right there. And I'm just going to press. Rock it back and forth a little bit. And then we have a happy fall, y'all. Now I have to put my little apostrophe right there with the paintbrush. But all we're going to do with this one now is add some berries and a couple of acorns, and we'll be done with that one. I was going to put a bow, but I thought, no, that's a little bit much. So we're just going to put some more pit berries here. Hold that in place for just a second. And hold it in place until it sets. Do a light acorn and a dark acorn. I'll turn this one this way, and we'll do a light one. Maybe up here. It's a little bit too big. So maybe I'll just do a bow. small twine bow, and we'll just leave it at that. I'm just going to make a little shoestring bow. Make a little tiny shoestring bow. Play with it a little bit. Get the side that I want. Pull the strings in. And then we'll just hot glue it right up under here. Hold that in place. Until it dries. And if I bring this around, I'm just going to bring this around. So that it'll cover up my happy. And bring this one around a little bit. And there we have pumpkin number 3. Happy fall, y'all. If you stuck with me this long, thank you so much for watching. And if you would consider subscribing to my channel, I'm Rust and Roses, and I'm Rebecca. I enjoy doing crafts for you and with you, and hope that it inspires you to get out your glue gun and have some fun. Thank you.
So here are the finished projects that we did today. I hope you like them. I think they turned out very well for a multitasking craft day, including a surprise bonus with the little tumbling tower stacked block pumpkins. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and like. This is Rebecca with Rust and Roses, and I will see you soon.